Is Zadina finally busted? And previewing the game in Anaheim.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. I'm your host, Brian Fisher. With me today, as always, is Scotty Bentley, also host here at Locked On Red Wings, also host at Locked On Tigers. Want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Got to get that plug in there, Scotty.
Have to.
Got a couple things we want to talk to you guys today about, but first, just get some news cleanup out of the way. First things first, the game on the 18th has been postponed. That was at Philadelphia. That game will be made up at a later date. It's supposedly because of COVID issues, but it must be because the Philadelphia Flyers are rescheduling things on their end. How are you predicting COVID issues a week and a half in advance? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so they must have had games that are getting postponed that they're making up at that time. Yeah.
The NHL listed 5 game postponements, and I think 3 of them were Philly. So it's just their schedule is hosed, and the teams that they play obviously have to accommodate for that.
Everyone's schedule is hosed right now, as more schedule changes for the Red Wings may be coming as well. We want to talk about Filip Zadina. We kind of touched on it last night after the game recap, but we felt it warranted a broader conversation again. As you all know, he was benched. Not even benched, healthy scratched in the game against San Jose. And then, Helene St. James came out with an interesting article today of the Detroit Free Press talking about the Zadina benching, where she had some quotes from Jeff Blashill that helped to paint a broader picture. And in it, he said, what Filip needs to do is put himself so he's not in the mix of players we're talking about and who goes in and who goes out. Ultimately, if you don't want to come out, put yourself in so you're not in the mix. We don't talk about that with Tyler Bertuzzi or Dylan Larkin because of what they've established themselves as players. I don't think it hurts a guy once in a while to hit the reset button, kind of take that pressure off, and then go get it. When Z comes back in the lineup, I'm hoping he can come back charging and playing really good hockey. And, it makes a good point because he, right now, as we clearly saw last night, he's not one of the guys who is not untouchable, so to speak, on this roster. There are a couple of guys, like I would have thought Filip Hronek at the start of the season would have been like an everyday guy, and he got the hook. I think Jeff Blashill's not afraid of pulling a guy when they're underperforming, as we can clearly see. And Zadina's been underperforming, and I think with the fact that Carter Rowney got hurt, he saw an opportunity to, get Smith back in the lineup, and he had to make a roster adjustment. And Zadina was the one to get the hook.
Yeah, and it's it'd be one thing if they just kept putting him out there and as like second line winger over and over and had him with the same people and then pulled him. But Jeff has tried, man. Like Blash has put him on the third line. He has mixed up who his line mates are on the third line. He's mixed up who his line mates are on the second line a little bit, not as much, but he's done in-game mixing. Like we've seen games where Zadina's played like half of the first period and then like not the rest of the game. We've seen him play in the middle of the third when he has like 6 minutes going into the third. I mean, like he has been put in so many different situations, and we have yet to see a single situation that has caused him to flourish. So while again, it's not I still think it is far too early and he is far too young to just completely punt on him. But I don't think that a benching is like this atrocious, like how could you ever think that this is a good idea move? Like at some point you have to send some sort of a message, and that's clearly what Blash did.
Yeah, and that's I am 100% in agreement with what you were saying. And I mentioned it last night. Like at a certain point, it becomes on Zadina hold himself accountable for his play. And he's played okay, but he hasn't played to what he is expected to be played. A second line forward, ideally a top line forward for where he was drafted and what his skill set is, but he's just not finding ways to put the puck in the back of the net. And like you said, Scotty, Jeff Blashill has put him in a position to succeed. So those Blashill haters, I don't agree with. Like I think if you think that Blashill is the reason why Filip Zadina is not playing good hockey, then you're wrong. You're wrong because he's put him in top 6 minutes. He's gotten him power play time. He's given him the opportunity, and Zadina has just failed to do so. I don't know if it's a mental block. I don't know what it is because he's got the skill set. He's taken a million shots on net. He just can't find the back of the net. And at this point, where they're at in the season, when there's a roster decision to be made, it's a problem that your guy you took 6th overall in 2018 is now the guy that is getting yanked out of the lineup in favor of Michael Rasmussen to move up to the second line. Like that is glaring.
And Rasmussen looked better last night than Zadina has in 90% of like the season. I mean, it wasn't even like, oh, we got pulled and then we just threw somebody in there and he sucked too. Like Rasmussen looked phenomenal, which doesn't help this at all for Filip.
I don't want to sound like I'm overreacting either because, he only got scratched one game, but it's not like this is just a sudden thing that happened and we're like, oh, taken aback by it. This is an accumulation of the season thus far. Like you said, he's seen reduced minutes. He's seen himself getting dropped down in the lineup. This is just the accumulation, the next step in him falling in the depth chart. And it's really upsetting to see because I really root for Filip Zadina. And
of course.
Like my third time now saying that he's got a really good skill set. He just can't seem to bring it together on the ice. And I really don't want to throw the B word out there in regards to him because we've defended him and like the saying that it's his first full season and all that. But last season was a bad season for him in that shortened year. This season's been a bad season for him in the first half of the season. Like at what point do we start to go, maybe he's not what we thought he was?
He's got 10 points in 32 games, dog. That's not top 6 forward. Like, no. You know what I mean? And it's I guess it's third line forward, I guess, but like you didn't draft him to be a third line depth piece. Like you drafted him to like you said a million times, you've drafted him to be a prominent part of this team going forward. And if his name wasn't Filip Zadina, if it was anybody else, if it was just some 28-year-old like depth piece, and he had 10 points in 32 games and was your third line winger, and he got sat one night, no one would blink. No one would be like, oh, that's horrible. What are you thinking? No one would. But nope. Filip Zadina is as polarizing as he is, and it causes what it causes. I mean, he just turned 22. Like he has time. He has time, and I still hold out that faith that he will end up being productive and be even remotely close to what we expected him to be on draft night. I do. But just looking at it objectively in a one game situation, it's really not that ridiculous. And I don't understand the oh my goodness, what is happening? Blashill's such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's pretty on par for the season and career that Filip Zadina has had up to this point.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, again, the context. When you give context to, who he is, it's the same reason why we're so critical of Michael Rasmussen. Both of them were first-round draft picks. So when you get drafted in the first round, there's a certain weight that comes with that kind of the draft window that he was taken in.
For sure.
And
for sure,
Zadina was taken 6th overall. Who else was taken 6th overall? Moritz Seider. Lucas Raymond was taken 2 above that at 4th overall. Simon Edvinsson in Sweden's taken 6th overall. I mean, obviously we can't really translate what Edvinsson's doing in Sweden right now to the NHL level, but so far he's got 3 people who are living up to 3 contemporaries who are living up to their hype that Zadina has failed to do. And again, He's 22. It's his first NHL season. That can't be stated enough. He's still got room to grow, and I still think that he has room to grow. But it's been an accumulation these past 2 seasons of underperforming, especially when you consider where he was drafted. And I'm starting to get a little nervous in my seat here, Scotty, and I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to use that B word, but it's starting to become glaring. Like, okay, well, this isn't just a bad stretch. This is starting to become Filip Zadina.
It's scary. It's scary. I mean, for the timeline of this rebuild and for everything that's come with it, it's obviously a scary thing. And thankfully, we have done a very good job. The front office and Yzerman have done a very good job of building a really solid foundation without putting all their cookies in the Filip Zadina jar. And have done a really good job, you know what I mean, of surrounding and filling out the rest of the roster and the rest of the farm system really, really well too. So if he doesn't end up being what we thought he was going to be, you know, we'll take our lump and hopefully be okay. But it's either way, this was somebody that was supposed to be a big part of this thing going forward, and up to this point has certainly not shown it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk more about this and then some Anaheim Ducks preview when we come back. Scotty, I got one final question on this Filip Zadina hot button issue that everyone's talking about.
That's my answer.
Oh, okay. That doesn't actually answer the question because it wasn't a yes or no question.
There you go.
The question
Friday.
No, that's not the answer either.
I thought you were going to ask what the horse's name was.
No. The question was going to be, where do you go from here with Filip Zadina? What is the next step? Do you immediately reinsert him back in the lineup, hoping that the problem's been solved? Do you sit him for another game? Or do you put him back in the lineup, but maybe in a more mitigated role instead of power play time? On second line, you put him in third line, fourth line, and keep Michael Rasmussen on that second line for as long as he stays hot. Like, what is the next step with Filip Zadina, in your opinion?
I think I put him back in the lineup. And honestly, I put him as high up as I'm comfortable, whether it's straight back to the second line or maybe like third line in some special teams. Or whatever. I think you sent your message. It was clear. And I think you see how he responds immediately. You know what I mean? I don't think there's too much value in sitting him and then giving him 8 minutes. I think that kind of defeats the purpose of why you sat him in the first place. Now you could have just given him 8 minutes last night. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I think you insert him, and I mean, this is the first like major healthy scratch he's had. So you reinsert him, you give him as many minutes as you're comfortable giving him, whatever that is, 13, 15 minutes, and you see how he responds. I think you did this to send a message, and the most important part of that is the response to it. So I think not allowing him to respond, you know what I mean, and giving him like third line and no special teams, giving him like 9 minutes or whatever is really not giving him the opportunity to respond to the message that you sent.
See, I differ on with you a little bit on that. Obviously, the part about putting him where you're comfortable, most comfortable, is the part I agree on, and that's going to differ from person to person. For sure. How comfortable they are with him.
It's pretty subjective.
Michael Rasmussen, you know what? He played really well on the second line. Let's see if he can keep that up, keep him up there. I would almost because you have to play this careful balance of lighting a fire under their butt / crushing their confidence altogether. Like some guys respond, everyone responds differently to this kind of tactic. And you got to build Zadina's confidence at this point because of the fact that like he's just had a bad season. And I'm sure, I don't know him personally, but I'm sure that weighs on him in different ways. I don't know how he reacts to it, but you can't have him shutting down completely. So you put him on a roll in a line you see him succeeding with. And I think keeping Rasmussen on the second line actually for the next game frees up a spot on the third line for him and Vlad Nemesnikov and a center of your choice to dominate on the third line. Because Zadina and Nemesnikov are both skilled forwards. We talked about how Nemesnikov dominates on the third line. Put those two guys together on the third line, you could have a dominant third line and still have an effective second line with Pius Suter and Robbie Fabry. this could be a good confidence building experience. Now I'm just spitballing here. I'm not the head coach. And there's good reason why I'm not the head coach, but it
You're an
seems like,
enforcer.
yeah. Okay. It seems like a halfway decent idea when I think about it in my head, because he might only get then 12 minutes instead of, the 16 he would get on the second line, but it could be a good way of getting his confidence back when he's playing against opponents he theoretically should be able to outperform, because he's got the skill set again. He just at the moment doesn't believe he has the skill set.
For sure. And I think I agree with your reasoning, and then just disagree on my strategy of agreeing with
Different solutions.
Right. Yes, that's the wording. Yes. I totally agree with the fact that you want to build his confidence back up, and that's why I think you give him as many minutes as possible. You throw him out there, you give him as many minutes as you want to give him, and that will show that's a statement of, hey, we still trust you, but I needed to get this point across that if you don't produce, you're going to get benched.
That's fair.
And
That's a fair point.
I think the best way to show to keep the confidence as high as it possibly could be after getting healthy scratched at 22 is to go out there and give him whatever larger role he's had this season back.
Centering top line. Let's go. Move Dylan Larkin down to number 2.
Yeah,
You can handle it. Let's go.
Let's just see, man. What if we did that he went out and just had like a
6-goal game?
Yeah, like a Hattie and 2 assists. We're like, all right, well, he's like, I've been telling you guys, all I needed is to just be the focal point of the offense. I don't know.
That would be insane. What a change in direction this franchise would take if Filip Zadina just turned out to be like an elite goal scorer only when he's on the top line.
For real, man. I mean, like, that's not true because he played top line all of last year. But
well, out of necessity.
Anyway.
The Red Wings ahead of tomorrow's game reassigned 3 players to their taxi squad. 3 players are players who are going to be on this taxi squad all season. They're guys who were on the taxi squad a week ago. Riley Barber, Luke Witkowski, and Caden Fulcher. That's it, guys. That's the news.
Woo!
We got the taxi squad back.
Hitters.
I don't know why they got sent back to the Griffins in the first place. If you're just going to call them back, it must have been roster or something or other.
Yeah,
no, you know what it is? It's because they cannot spend more than like so many consecutive days on the taxi squad in a row.
You're right.
And so they sent them down to reset the timer to bring them back up, because the Red Wings, for all intents and purposes, have gotten past the COVID spread. Like they could catch it again, but like it's now that they all had it, it's lesser of a chance they all catch it again in the near future. As time goes on, the chances get greater again, but that's a whole different topic. So you got 3 guys back in the taxi squad again in case somebody catches COVID. There are a few guys on the roster who haven't caught it yet, but we're praying that they don't, because we don't want to lose anyone and have to slot Luke Witkowski 1 point in the AHL. Luke Witkowski back into the lineup.
Is this Luke Witkowski slander?
A little bit, yeah.
Wow. Never thought I'd see the day.
Never thought you'd see the day? Have you talked to me? And then the other little piece of news we wanted to mention before getting into the Anaheim Ducks preview, Scotty, we didn't mention it yesterday because we were so in love with how the game unfolded. But after Smith got into his fight, everyone's favorite referee, which sounds so weird when you say it out loud, people have a favorite referee.
He's everybody's favorite referee, though.
Wes McCauley.
5 minutes. 5 minutes for fighting.
Like, I think
he's the man. He's just the man.
Blashill say in the post-game press conference that he is the best referee in the NHL.
Yeah. And then, like, even it's so wild because, like, the Red Wings Twitter account, there was a fight. Like, Giovanni Smith got their player got in a fight and he landed on top. And then they didn't even tweet a clip of, like, the fight. They just tweeted they were like, go to the 39-second mark. You're welcome. And it was just the McCauley call.
They literally asked you to skip the entire fight.
Yeah, the actual
to get to the
fight
Wes
of
McCauley.
their player that they, won. And they're like, yeah, just go to the McCauley call. 5 minutes for fighting. He's the man. He's just the man.
He's got a personality, man, and that's just something you need in the league.
He's the best. All of his calls. Even like the fighting, like the end of the fighting one was obviously the highlight, but all of his calls are electric.
Is he
He's so enthusiastic.
Is Macaulay the one who said you can't do that before
Yeah,
calling it?
yeah, he has done that. Yes,
You can't do
he's just
that.
the man.
2 minutes for hooking.
He's just the man. Oh,
He's a gem.
he is
Rare in sports to have a umpire or referee with an actual not even humble but fun. I keep thinking of baseball umpires and how they all have massive egos and all. I just want to.
They're the worst.
They're the worst. They
Team Ian Kinsler for life. If you know, you know.
Angel Hernandez. Yeah. Okay. BetOnline would like to wish you a very happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKDOWN to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline.
BetOnline.
BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, time to do our Anaheim Ducks Detroit Red Wings preview as the Red Wings are going on a 3-game road trip to California, facing the Ducks, then the Kings, then the Sharks, who they just took care of at LCA, as we have so fervently reminded many of you many times already. But first up is those Anaheim Ducks, Scotty, and they had a lot of COVID-19 problems, like the Red Wings and many other teams in the league, but the Ducks more so than many other teams. I think the only other team that's been worse off because of COVID is the Montreal Canadiens. The Ducks have been just absolutely wasted. And then you have some news about players returning.
Yeah. They said on the broadcast and you know from oddly enough, I'm like really in touch with Ducks Twitter, and that's indirectly because I am very in Los Angeles Angels Twitter, and they're all Ducks fans. So like, you know, and like that's a whole different story of how I even like made friends within the Angels Twitter community. But the belief seems to be that Zegras is going to come back for tomorrow. I guess the people kind of thought he was coming back last night, and he tested positive once or something. So I think or tested positive too recently. So I think the general belief, and again, like I said, they said on the broadcast too, is that Zegras is probably going to be back for the game, which is exciting for the NHL. I mean, you have then Sider, Raymond, and Zegras all in a game together. That's obviously that's great for marketing, even though the NHL will do nothing with it because they hate marketing their players. But that's still a cool thing. And then Getzlov, I believe he's still like iffy, and I think he's more leaning toward probably not being able to be back for the game by the sounds of it. So still they've still got people coming back, and they had a couple of like low line depth pieces just get put on, so like they're still dealing with it pretty heavy. But Zegras coming back is obviously huge for them, and just a cool thing for the NHL.
Yeah, Zegras coming back is going to really change the outlook on how this game is played because he has been such a dynamic rookie for this team so far this season. He's been everything that he has been hyped up to be, which is, you know, that's something that's so rare nowadays. It seems like when guys live up to their hype. He's got 25 points in 35 games played. Everyone knows that amazing pass he had. That one pass doesn't define his entire season, but his season's backed it up. He's been phenomenal. Really good. I mean, he's the rookie of the month of December. So all 3 rookies of the month for the season thus far are going to be in this game. And so it's going to be an absolutely electric game. Can't miss game. The Ducks are having one hell of a resurgent season. They're second in the Pacific Division, 18-11-7. They are very suddenly one of the premier teams in the Pacific, which is a tough as hell division. I mean, you got the Golden Knights. You got the Colorado Avalanche. You got, you know, teams like the Calgary Flames who are always expected to be one of the tougher teams in the division, and sometimes aren't. But, you know, you got plenty of teams in that division. who are super, super tough to play against. And the Anaheim Ducks have risen against above it all so far through the first 30. It's not going to be an easy game. Red Wings struggle on the road. Anaheim Ducks are playing out of their mind this year. It's going to be a tough one for the Detroit Red Wings, and we just got to hope that this is, ending that home stand with that win over the Sharks is enough to get them fired up to go to California and get the first game as a win.
Yeah, the Ducks are wild, man. They are. I've probably watched more Ducks games than any other team in the NHL besides the Red Wings. Like they're so fun to watch, and now that everything's on ESPN Plus and stuff, like they're one of my favorite teams to watch. They're so unbelievably young. They're still a little shallow on defense. So hopefully the top line for the Wings can do some damage there. But their forward core is young and good. And I think very clearly they took a big step forward this year. And I think they're just a couple of kind of tightening up the ship defensively away from actually becoming like a true contender. I am very high on the Ducks going forward and currently. And Zegras coming back is a big thing for them, obviously. They're a young, fast team. Like they fly, and it feels like Gibson's been in the league for 20 years
Right.
in that, but he's still only in his late-ish 20s. I mean, he's still relatively young by the landscape of everything. It's just he's been their goalie forever already, and he's still solid as he always is. It's a really good, really fun young team, and the cracks are there. The cracks are there to take advantage. But I mean, they went on a huge heater earlier in the year and won 10 straight or something ridiculous.
Something like that.
I mean, they really have had a unbelievably fun season. One of the more fun seasons of any team in the entire league. It's definitely a test game for the Wings now. Coming into the season, it might have been looked at as kind of like a equal playing field, two teams that are just trying to take step forwards, and now it's very much a prove it game, I would say, for the Red Wings to face off against this other team that's kind of lined up with you in the sense of where they are in the rebuild and the youth movement and all that, and it's two young fun teams, and hopefully if the Wings look as fast as they did a couple of nights ago, we could be in for some fireworks. And like you said, top three of the Rookie of the Year voting all playing in the same game. It should be fun.
Well, and at first brush, I was shocked at the start of the season they had. I was like, the Anaheim Ducks, they were bad. Like, they were bottom feeders. Not last year and the year before. Like, where did this come from? And then you look at the roster that they've built, Scotty. I mean, it's not that surprising. I mean, Trevor Zegras, they drafted high. I think third overall in his draft class.
They did.
They got Jamie Drysdale. They went out and made acquisitions like Kevin Shattenkirk. They got guys like Troy Terry too, another young guy who's playing out of his mind, leading the team in scoring with 34 points in 35 games. Cam Fowler's been a fixture on that team for a while now, and then, of course, you got veteran presence like Ryan Getzlaf, who's been around but is still producing at a good clip. They got a really good mix of young talent that they've acquired through drafting, through free agency, through trading, and the guys who've just been around for a while. And then you got, like you said, John Gibson, .917 save percentage in 27 games played. Their backup goalie, Stolarz, he's got a .932 save percentage in 10 games played. So, like you said, their biggest weakness is going to be is in their defensive depth. But it's not necessarily as big of a weakness, I would say, as what the Red Wings have in defense. Because the Red Wings defense, I would say, is even bigger. Like they are, like you said, in a few years, they're going to be one of the powerhouses in the league if they keep treading in this direction. They are what I hope the Red Wings are next year. Right. A team that is legitimately, still has a few holes to figure out, but is legitimately competing for their division and, is putting up a fight in that race. They are a young, like you said, a young team that has a lot of promise, just not, I don't think is quite there yet.
For sure. I agree. I think they're still a year away, an off season, I guess. I don't want to say a year. I think they're a healthy, good off season away from from being, I mean, really legit. And
Yeah, but despite all that, they're still second in their division, which is a hell of a division to be second.
They've had an unreal season for sure.
Yeah. I'm not really comfortable predicting a score for this one. Because I think it's going to be a tough game for the Red Wings. I guess my question for you is, and we already talked about Filip Zadina, so we don't need to talk about if he's coming back, but who are the Red Wings starting in this game? That's always the hot button question.
I think you go Ned. And like part of that is just if he's your starter. I know he played the most recent game, but it's not a back-to-back. You still, I mean, under a lens, like he's been in goal one time in the last 2 weeks, right? Like, and I know that was just a couple of days ago, and that's not quite the same thing, but we still did just have that break. And I think again, against a young quick offense like that, I no slander, but I don't really want to see Greiss in that against the Ducks. I think that kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. For a while there, I was thinking that maybe Greiss would start just to get him another game. But the more I sat on it and thought about it, I was like, this is a game against probably the toughest of the three in the West Coast road trip. You want to start off on the right foot in the road trip, so you want to put your goaltender who's most likely to get you the win. Nedeljkovic is capable of playing multiple game stretches because he's done 4 consecutive games earlier in the season when he played really well in that whole stretch. So I think they're going to tap on Nedeljkovic to get them off on the right foot, and then maybe give Greiss game 2 or game 3 of this road trip. Again, then that'll vary too, depending on how it's going, the road trip. So if Nedeljkovic has an awful game, it'll be like Greiss immediately. But Nedeljkovic is coming off a pretty good game, his second straight game. Go for him again. They got the win last night, so hopefully tonight they can do it again.
Hopefully, baby. Well, like I said, if they look as fast as they did on whatever day of the week that was,
they'll never lose again.
Tuesday, we're set.
We ball. Want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets. They're your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow for a game recap, recapping what is hopefully the second win in a row and the first of a 3-game road trip in California. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.